All right, welcome to another episode of the Couch Coaches podcast where we're talking about everything going on in sports. And if your phone was like my phone yesterday, it was in my hand, in my face like this, because free agency started and it went absolutely nuts immediately. And we have a very special all 49er fan show this week, which is kind of nice. I'm enjoying this. We love the Raiders fans, at least the two that are on the show. But having an all Niners show is, it's pretty nice sometimes. Sometimes you gotta just keep it in the family. So Brother Bill, all kinds of action going on yesterday. Um, Teams doing stuff that like makes sense, signing great players. Team doing stuff, releasing players and not signing players, and I know it's a lot to take in because there's so many names and it's just seems very fluid and everything's all over the place. But with what you've seen so far, who would you say is at least one of the teams that you would consider like a winner in this free agency acquisition so far?
Yeah, we don't know about winner, but I know the team that to me made one of the better moves was the Baltimore Ravens getting Derrick Henry. Um, Only because their running game last year was they were the number one rushing team this past season, but I believe that those numbers were skewed because of the way they use Lamar Jackson, the running game. So having a true running back like Henry, who's a workhorse, primarily running the ball. I can't see them getting worse in terms of their running game. So and like I said, and he's a monster in the fourth quarter of games. So I would say the Ravens would be on my short list.
Yeah, and it doesn't look like they have a whole lot of turnover. Um, so they're pretty much bringing back that same team as last year with a new defensive coordinator, but they have a lot of defensive talent and Derrick Henry. And for him going only 9 million a year, I'm assuming he had plenty of offers and he wanted to be with the team that he thinks can get him to the Super Bowl. I know the Cowboys were everybody's talking about the Cowboys should pick him up. One, they have no cap space. They have like $8 million in cap space. So they couldn't even get him for even just one other player with him 1 year until they sign Dak to that massive contract and then free up some space, which I cannot wait for, which is going to be amazing. Um, yeah, but they're pretty intimidating. I think Philadelphia was intimidating with adding Saquon, and I'm hoping that losing Kelsey to retirement will kind of balance that out. And they have a whole new coaching staff under the head coach, and that obviously coaching is a huge factor in Philadelphia because they were amazing 2 years ago and they were not amazing last year, especially towards the second half after we started seeing them kind of crack a little bit. One team that is surprising me how many starters they're losing, and my guess is because they're going to sign their quarterback to a pretty fat deal, is the Dolphins. They had obviously a playoff team the last 2 years. Not too impressive when they went to Kansas City and it's so cold they have fans that are now getting their fingers and toes amputated because of frostbite, which is insane. But they seem to be losing a bunch of like very high quality players. They lost one of their linemen to the Raiders, which was one of the Raiders' biggest acquisitions, and now their defensive line's looking pretty stacked. Their offense looks like absolutely nothing, but their defense looks really good. But the Dolphins seem to be losing a lot of people, and the only thing I can think of why that would be is because they're about to sign Tua to like $40 million a year, which I don't know what I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, what's your other option? And this is the going rate, which is kind of the same excuse that the Giants had last year when they signed Daniel Jones to that fat deal, and now their whole thing just looks like a complete dumpster fire. Um, but as far as winners, Houston to me jumped out. It looks like It looks like Houston is a place that either they're firing people up and talking them into going, or people saw the potential of Houston and went, "That's a place I want to go play. That's a coach I want to go play for," because they seem to be signing a whole lot of people, and they look like they're going to be a lot to handle if they can keep that momentum going with the offense that they started this year.
Yeah, I think what Houston has going for them is they they already checked the box on a quarterback. And in a quarterback-driven league, not that, if you have, a great quarterback, you're going to win the Super Bowl. But if you solve that problem first, then and have the offense, around the quarterback, and then have a solid defense, then I believe you're going to be a contender and not a pretender. So they solved that. I mean, they struck gold on that, getting their quarterback, and defensively, you saw that they were good. They're in the right division. The AFC South isn't, in my opinion, a strong division. I mean, Jacksonville had that one year, they upset who was in Indianapolis. He's come back, and you saw how that worked out in those past seasons. So I think Houston's stock is rising. And if you're a
Yeah,
Texas
absolutely.
fan, you should be excited.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think Jacksonville, to me, Trevor Lawrence reminds me a lot of Peyton Manning those first couple of years, where it's like you can see it, but he's throwing so many interceptions. You're like, does he have it? And I feel like all he has to do is just calm down just a little bit. And I feel like they're going to be a really good team because they also had a pretty good draft um draft class, going after wide receivers and a couple wide receivers and then picking up a couple uh guys on the defensive secondary. Um the Packers, I think, have had a very good, they looked incredible the last part of the year. Um they made us look very bad for most of the game, which was disheartening. But picking up Josh Jacobs like right away,
Yeah.
he's like, I'm not either. He's like, I'm not going to stay with Oakland or Oakland. I'm not going to stay with Vegas, or Vegas was like, we're not going to pay you a lot of money. And man, that dude he was one of the first ones signed. Like it was like Kirk Cousins, and then Jacobs is gone. I thought that was a great signing. I thought them picking up McKinney. McKinney was also a great signing.
Yeah, I forgot about Green Bay, because and I think I said last week, it'll be interesting to see what if Detroit Lions can repeat the success this upcoming season like they did last season. So I mean, now it's a two horse to three-horse race, I believe, in the NFC North between Green Bay. I mean, Minnesota, Kirk Cousins going. We'll get to that if we have time, if that question comes up. And then the other team in Detroit, of course. Um, but both Detroit and Green Bay are young teams. So they're having a veteran running back like Jacobs, having a veteran running back / receiver like McKinney. Seems like they've got a good quarterback, so it's going to be, I think, to see what and they have a good defense. I mean, look what they did, when they went down to Dallas and beat them. So
With a coach that they thought wasn't good enough. So if that's their defense
right,
with a bad coach, my goodness, what are they going to do if they get
right,
somebody in there that they think is competent?
yeah,
It's pretty crazy. And Minnesota, I think Minnesota has to be a young team just because the last two seasons, I see all their changes and I go, what are they doing? Like they're losing like everybody, like, or they let everybody go. And it has to be a money thing. But now you're not paying Kirk Cousins, so now I don't really, I don't get what the strategy is, other than they must really trust their GM to go in and draft, because they have Sam Darnold for a quarterback now, and you're going up against. I mean, I wouldn't really worry about Chicago yet.
yeah,
They potentially after the draft and after like a year, but Green Bay and Detroit are no joke at all. I mean,
yeah,
Detroit's bringing basically the same team back with the same coaching staff. They're already a lot to handle. They already just crushed them on. Was it Thanksgiving that they beat them
yeah,
like
yeah,
really bad?
yeah,
And I don't get Minnesota. I mean, I think they're well coached and everything, but they're losing. They everybody's signing with like the Texans, and I don't see how you can lose that many starters 2 years in a row and still be. It's like they're rebuilding without saying they're rebuilding.
yeah. And you always look for teams. What's a team's identity on offense or defense? And that was Minnesota. I mean, they've typically been an aggressive, you know, blitz more often than not, blitzing team on defense. Um, but they can be run on. And offensively, I mean, to your point, with Donald quarterback, is he going to be the don't lose us the game? I mean, the label's unfair. A game manager for the team. I mean, you're going to see um, if they aren't running the ball, that's going to be a long day for them, because if I'm a defense, I'm coming after Darnold like crazy, especially on third and longs. So we'll see.
Yeah, he's definitely mistake prone for sure. But the fact that they went and got a big armed quarterback means that that coach is like, I know he didn't really work anyplace else, but I can make this work. And I see that big old arm, and we're gonna be hucking that ball down the field because poor Jefferson's like, my whole team is like, you guys paid me really well, but like my whole team is, there's nobody here. Justin Fields. So I know we didn't discuss this before. 2 months ago, when it was kind of, when you knew the Bears were going to have the number one pick, it was like, oh, Justin Fields is going to have a big market. Justin Fields has zero market. Every place that you would think that he would have gone. And I don't know if it's because the Bears are asking for too high of if they're asking for like a fourth or a third and nobody's offering it, or if there's just no market for him. But I thought Minnesota, and they went and got Sam Darnold. Obviously, after Atlanta got Kirk Cousins, it's not going to be Atlanta. But is there a spot where you see him going? I mean, even as a backup, like where does Justin Fields go?
Well, think of the teams that have a good running game, that who have a average or less than average quarterback. And if you go through if you start with each division, so I mean, the Redskins, who's the Redskins bringing back a quarterback? Don't know.
Nobody. Sam Howell.
Yeah, exactly. So I
Yeah.
mean, so I'm sorry, Redskins, the Commanders. I'm sorry.
Well, but they're also definitely going to draft somebody. I mean, because
Okay,
they're number
yeah, and
two.
that's the other part. And I haven't looked at the draft prospects recently just to see what quarterbacks are going to be, the high picks. And the thing is, depending on where you're picking the draft, anyways, the quarterback you have in mind might be gone by then. And so, I guess to answer your question, where's the market for Fields? I think it's too early to tell because to me, you have to wait and see what happens, after the draft. I mean, and the question is, by then, is it even too late? If all the teams already have their quarterback, then what's left?
Yeah, I'm thinking for him, like I would have just almost asked to just be released. Like you're not going to get much for him anyways. Just release him and let him be out of that so he doesn't have to, because they're 99.9% gonna, they're trying to trade him. It's not working. They're gonna draft Caleb Williams number one. He's gonna come in, he's gonna be the day one starter. There's no point in learning behind somebody who still doesn't really know, can't really run the offense well anyways. It's almost like just cut bait and just release him and just let him go before this whole like incoming new quarterback, and he's going to be in the quarterback room. It's going to be like the whole dynamic is weird, and he's young. He hasn't really had that much success. Just let him go, and maybe he'll find a spot someplace. I was actually hoping for him as a player that he would go to New York, for the Giants and be behind Daniel Jones for a little bit. But Dayball took a guy that was similar, very big and very strong and very fast, very inaccurate. And when Dayball got there, that's when he kind of molded Josh Allen into this guy that is, you know, top two or three MVP every year. It's, is hasn't really won anything yet, but looks really good and looks much better than when he first started. I was kind of hoping he would go there and kind of learn under Dayball, but then they went and got what's his name, the backup quarterback for the Seahawks. They picked him up. They picked up Drew Lock.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know why. I don't know. And the only thing I can think there is their Bears are asking too much.
Well, don't be surprised, and I'm not saying this as a prediction, but only because you have talked about it. Because the 49ers released Darnold, who was the number 2 quarterback, I don't know if that means the number 3 quarterback moves up, who I can't even name, or if the Niners sign Justin Fields with a quarterback friendly offense, because you have your running back in McCaffrey, you have weapons. It wouldn't. I'm not that I'm expecting it, but it wouldn't surprise me, especially if he's not asking a lot of money. Because the other challenge that the 49ers have is cap room. Not just this year. I mean, the salary cap goes up every year, but the 49ers have 2 years to win, in my opinion,
Right.
to win number 6 before they have to pay Brock Purdy. Because right now he's on $1 million a year, which is, I mean, the cap is $250 million. So do the math. That's how small contract Brock Purdy is on. And so
He's making
you got to, huh?
even less than the Steelers are paying Russell Wilson.
Right. So you got to take advantage of that if you're the 49ers and to try to um, build a roster through free agency in the draft that can get you number 6 in the next 2 years.
Yeah, and I'm wondering because he's so inaccurate, I'm wondering if he fits into that like Shanahan style system. Because I could, because I mean Carson Wentz isn't. I mean Carson Wentz with the Rams, he's not overly accurate, so I could see him going to the Rams. I wasn't even thinking us. We re-signed Brandon Allen.
Oh, Allen. Okay, so he's presumably going to move up to number 2 then, unless we
Unless we
get.
pick somebody up, yeah,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
cheap.
gotcha.
Yeah, and we still have the draft coming up. It's there's so many names. It was so I'd like sit down and like I'm studying for a test today, going like, okay, he's here, he went there, uh, okay, and yeah, um, so switching to basketball, the Celtics to me, the Ravens are terrifying in football, and when they're comfortable, like they were against the Niners, they can absolutely just embarrass you. Celtics, when they played the Warriors and were very comfortable, absolutely annihilated the Warriors. But when they play teams that play them tight or play them a little hard, or they get into a situation where the games mean a little bit more, they seem to tighten up and not be as good as they are when they're comfortable. So I'm thinking with this, because everybody's talking about like, who's going to go in the East and who's going to go in the West. And Boston keeps coming up and they'll crush a team. And you're like, this is the year. Boston, they look so good. And then they play again the next game and you're like, who am I watching? So I'm thinking, are the Celtics the Ravens of the NBA, where they're a great team, they're well coached, they have a lot of talent, but because there's an element of their game that is emotional and not just strategy, is that and so far that seems to be what's been kind of blocking the Ravens from moving on. I'm wondering, is it the same thing with the Celtics, where because they're emotional, you can almost kind of manipulate their emotion and they don't play up to their caliber, which is what's keeping them from getting over the hump?
Well, so the Celtics, as talented as they are, where it showed itself for the past 2 seasons has been in the playoffs in series, because I bet you very few people picked the Miami Heat to upset the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals. Very few. And yet the Heat have a style of toughness and they're well coached. You have to scratch your head to think about who the superstars are. When I say superstars, I'm talking all stars on the team. Sure, you've got Jimmy Butler. You've got who's their center, the guy who plays drawing a blank. But I guess my point is, and where I thought the Celtics, when they got Malcolm Brogdon a couple years ago to have a true point guard, that was going to get them over the hump. But where I think they get exposed, to your point, is in close games. They have a lot of individual one-on-one plays, but the one player, the isolation, either make or miss a shot. Now they're putting up a lot of 3-pointers regular season. That's why they're beating teams. They beat 3 teams by 50 points. That's not going to happen in the playoffs against better defensive teams in a series. And so to answer your question, I think what we'll have to see when they get to the postseason is how they match up against certain teams in a series in the East. And if they get to the finals, they better hope that the Denver Nuggets aren't there, because I still cannot see, barring injury, I can't see anyone beating the Denver Nuggets in a series.
Yeah, I don't see it either. I mean, it would have to. Yeah, I don't know. It's funny that you brought up the Heat. You think the Heat are going to make another run? Do you think playoff Jimmy's going to come to play when
Well,
Jimmy hits?
even if he does, I think they're going to need help, because I think where they're going to, like I say, what happens one year, it doesn't always translate to the next year. They had a miraculous run, like I said, to get past Boston. I think if they have to play the same Boston team again this year, I can't see them getting past the Celtics. Don't count out Milwaukee, but I think it's going to depend on Chris Middleton's health. And I think the other team to us, I don't think the Knicks or the Cavaliers are going to make much noise. And to me, I think it's really three teams, more like coming out of the East between Boston, Milwaukee, and I have to look at the standings to see who that third team is.
Yeah, I could see the Knicks not winning much. I mean, maybe the first series, but I feel like they're going to be one of those teams that's going to wear the team out, whoever they play for the next round, just because they play so tough. And depending on who that is, um, I can see just being one of those where they win, but it's they win in 6 games, and it's like a tough 6 games to get through.
Yeah, Philly is a scratch because of Joel Embiid's health.
Right, right. And we get Steph back, so we're hoping we
Yeah,
got
but
it.
we get it back a game too late. I think the game tomorrow night against Dallas is huge because Dallas is one of the teams that the Warriors are chasing to try to get that 6th spot. So not having him tomorrow, it's the I don't. It would be an upset if they can go and take care of Dallas. I think it's in Dallas, right, tomorrow?
Yeah, I think so. And then they're back. Then they're in LA on
Yeah.
Saturday.
You got Dallas and Lakers back to back. Yeah, we can step back for Lakers game, but I always felt like the Dallas game, because they play my 3 more times for the season, and so that was a team they had to catch. The other teams who they're chasing, other than the Lakers, I don't believe they play again. I don't think they play Phoenix again, or I think it's the Clippers is the other team they're chasing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. Well, I think that does it for this week. Thank you very much. And I'm sure there's gonna be plenty of football news. And then we're getting closer. We're gonna get we're finishing up all the men's and women's basketball tournaments this week, which is cool. And then we're gonna be jumping into March Madness. So we have a lot coming up in the next few weeks.
Yeah, so we'll talk about what the brackets are going to look like heading into the first four
Yep.
next Tuesday.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Have a good night. We'll see you guys next week.
All right, see you.